Hey everybody, I'm Jordan Brown from Soul Furniture and Design, and today I want to tell you of my story and my journey of starting my woodworking business. So right out of high school, I got a job framing houses in Halifax that I absolutely loved. Though it didn't last, it definitely sparked an interest in just building stuff. After that job, I went to a fishing gear company. We built fishing gear, and I worked my way up to manager after 6 years. And during that time, I bought my first house. So when I bought my first house, I ended up going to the Brick and buying lots of furniture and spending thousands of dollars. And within about a year, it looked secondhand. Just nothing lasted, and I couldn't believe of the quality of this furniture. So having renovating this house, I had a bunch of leftover lumber, so I started whipping together entryway tables and coffee tables and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed doing it, even though it made me a little angry because I didn't have the proper tools, I didn't have the knowledge how to do this stuff, but I pushed through and ended up being really proud of the furniture I made. So, after some time working at this fishing gear company as the manager, making good money, but I was really unfulfilled with my life. This is not how I pictured my life going. I just saw no future in that job. My wife, girlfriend at the time, ended up getting a job in Calgary, Alberta as a teacher, and she asked me, "Do you want to come with?" Well, I said yes. And it was a scary decision because I worked for 6 years to become the manager of this company. But you know what? Such is life. Time to take the plunge. So we were on this big kick of getting rid of everything we had so we could cram whatever we owned into a Ford Ranger and drive out to Calgary. So I was working one day, and my wife was putting on a yard sale to sell all of our stuff. And when I got home, she said, "I sold all your furniture." And I was like, "Wait, what? You sold all my furniture?" And I was like, "Well, that's a good thing. Wait, how much money did you make off it?" And she told me it was like, $1,000 that we made off this furniture. And it was just, it blew my mind because I couldn't believe that what I thought was, kind of crappy furniture, people bought it and they loved it. And not only that, but they said, "If you ever come back to Nova Scotia, give us a call because we would like some more of your furniture." So then my wheels started turning. It's like, I could make a business out of this. This is fantastic. So that kind of got put on hold for a while, and we started to make our way out to Calgary, Alberta. And once I got there, I was doing some odd jobs and I was actually driving a liquor truck. And as I was driving, I had a lot of time to think. And in my mind, I said, okay, if I went out and I spent $100 on lumber, then I could bring it back in probably within a day. Let's say I build like a bed frame or a coffee table. I could turn that $100 into $500 in one day from home. And I thought, well, that's a pretty cool concept. I need to give that a try. But I didn't have any money, like not even $100 that I could spend extra. So I remember calling like business loan companies and just asking for like $1,000, and they like laughed in my face basically because it wasn't a realistic number. It was too low. So I put a post on Kijiji saying that we do custom work, barely had any tools, didn't have a place to work out of, but I just threw it out there. And one person called me and said, "We're looking for some floating shelves." Perfect. I could do that. Ask them what sizes they wanted and all that, the color and all that sort of stuff. And out of my driveway at the time, I built these floating shelves and installed them, and they were super happy with the product that I made for them. And I ended up making, I think, $400 profit. And that was my first paying job. And I was like, well, that was cool. I should try this again. So I put another post out there and I got another person message me and they wanted a huge mirror. So at the time, I was subcontracting for a renovation company out there. So I started to get my own tools and everything working for them, and I was always coming across trim and everything else from that job that I could just take home because it was going to go in the dumpster anyways. So I took some of that trim and bought a couple extra things and a giant mirror and built this giant mirror for them, and they were absolutely ecstatic. They absolutely loved it. Like, I just couldn't believe that I was getting paid to do this kind of stuff. To me, that was unreal. And they loved it so much, they ended up keeping me working for almost 2 years on side projects. I was building closet doors for them, closet shelves. I even built a tree house in their backyard for their son, which was a whole lot of fun. And I ended up making quite a bit of money. So we ended up moving out of the rental property we were at and moving into a different one. And they had a small garage there where I finally was able to set up my first shop. And I started buying more tools, and I'm still working for this renovation company. So every now and then, like, I would, rip out a kitchen island. Well, I'd take that island and turn it into a bed frame or something. And I had all these pieces just selling all of a sudden. Um, and then what really changed the whole business was my idea to carve my own live edge, because still I didn't have very much money. I was just scraping by the entire time. So I didn't have much money, but my idea was, what if I could go buy construction lumber and carve a live edge on it and turn it into coffee, like live edge coffee tables and dining room tables. So I went out and I was able to spend $40 on this construction lumber and $100 on a set of metal legs. And I glued up all these pieces. I still didn't have a planer or anything like that. It just had like palm sander, belt sander, but I made it work. And I built a beautiful little coffee table, live edge coffee table, put the metal legs on it, and it sold for $400 within a couple days. So I was starting to make money from that. I was, ooh, okay, let's make more. So I went back to Home Depot and I bought more construction lumber and just kept making all these tables, and they just kept selling, and more people were asking for this and that and this and that. And then things started to just progress to a point where I didn't really need to do the renovation company anymore. Instead, I was pretty much just focused on building these tables. So as things were really starting to kick forward, I got some news. And my wife, girlfriend at the time, came and said, "You want to go up for a coffee?" Sure. So she picked me up and we drove in her car up to Tim Hortons, and we parked the car, and she passes me this little box. And in that box, I pull out a white onesie for a baby onesie that says, "I heart daddy." It took me a second. And then I started bawling my eyes out. And the first thing that I said was, "Does that mean we have to move home now?" Just, yes, we need to be with family. And at the time, I was, my business was just starting to take off. I was just getting to get a clientele base, and everything was looking good. And I was happy about this, but at the same time, I was also disappointed that I had to cut off everything that I was doing and move home and try to find something to do or do this. So I finished up my time in Calgary. We ended up moving home, and I had to make a decision of, what am I going to do in Nova Scotia now? I don't have my clientele base. I've been gone for almost 3 years. Nobody knows who I am, what I do. But I said, you know what? I have a couple $1,000s saved up for, just to pay some bills while I'm here. So I thought, I'm going to give this a try. So I immediately, as soon as I got home, I put a post out on Facebook saying, "Hey, we're in Nova Scotia. We have friends and family on Facebook that would help share this around. We're in Nova Scotia, and we are a custom furniture business looking for work." So again, I was just scraping by for a couple of years, just doing this and working some side jobs, just anything to make some money. But at the same time, I didn't want to work for anybody else. I wanted this business to succeed. And though it was hard, it was still what I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I just kept scraping by, and eventually I started to gain some traction here. and I went to start buying the construction lumber again and start making these live edge coffee tables and entryway tables and end tables, just small, quick jobs. I was putting out probably 5 coffee tables a week. Though I wouldn't sell those 5 coffee tables a week, at least I had them in storage, working on selling them through Facebook, Kijiji, whatever means that I could. But it came to a point where I had people coming every day to buy these coffee tables, so I was making a couple $100s a day, and this idea was starting to come to fruition. Um, so after a couple of years of doing that, I ended up building my shop up, getting more tools, understanding exactly what I'm doing because at this time I'm self-taught. I'm just learning what works and what doesn't, what tools do I need, what tools don't I need. And the big thing that really hindered my production was moisture content. And if you know anything about woodworking, that's the base of everything is moisture content. And so I built $14,000 worth of tables that I had in my showroom. And all of a sudden, the odd table started twisting, or the knots were popping, or it was splitting. Things just weren't looking good at that point because I just invested all this money into building this stuff. So I knew at that point I needed to increase my skill set because I didn't really understand much about the moisture content and everything else like that. So I sat there probably for a couple weeks just on my phone researching and researching moisture content, what to do. And I realized at that point, if I'm going to do it this way, then I need to dry this lumber. So I wanted to build a kiln just to get it down to that moisture content that I needed so that my tables wouldn't get destroyed after changing climates and blah 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 blah. But again, I didn't have much money. I had $14,000 worth of tables that weren't going to last, and some were selling from time to time, but a lot of them I just had to cut up and use for something else because I couldn't sell that to a customer. Um, and then I get a phone call one day from a bar owner in Liverpool, which is about half an hour away from me. And he was interested in a 20-foot long bar top with epoxy and everything else. It was definitely the biggest job that I had up to that point. So I met with him and I told him that this is my drawback right now. I don't have a kiln to dry this lumber, and he had a tree that he wanted to use for the bar top, and it was a black locust, and it was a crazy huge tree, and it's been sitting in a swamp for 6 years. And we got it milled up, and I told him like we need to dry this, and if we air dry it, it's going to take years, and it's still not going to be the right moisture content. So he offered. He said, "Well, how about I pay for the kiln right now, and then you take that money out of the job?" Fantastic. That sounds great. So I called our local mill and said, "Can you send me a 12 by 16 shed?" And all of a sudden it showed up in my driveway, and it was time to start building this shed. And within the shed, I was going to take one section of it and build a kiln. So I did that. And then he brought the lumber here and I dried it, and just, that there's a lot to learn as far as drying lumber goes. So that was kind of like my test of how this actually works. So I dried the lumber, did the job. He also got me to build 20 other bar tables and like just a whole bunch of stuff. And then all of a sudden I had a shed that I can use for a stain shop and kiln. I had my dusty shop that I used for just building everything until it was ready to go out into the stain shop, and that's where it would get finished. And so things were starting to become more of like a production line, and I was able to take that construction lumber and dry it finally. And once I started doing that, then all of a sudden things really started changing because my tables were good. I could let them sit there for a year or more and nothing would ever happen. So I knew that, okay, what I have now is worth selling. But one big problem that I had is every time that a coffee table would sell, it would only be a couple $100 because I am trying to remain affordable for people. Since I know that I'm not putting out this crazy high quality furniture, my goal was to remain affordable. So I wasn't a big fan of just selling a coffee table from time to time because, it's just not very much money. Um, so what I ended up doing was making my first dining room table and the same style, the live edge dining room table, and that's when real things really started to get interesting because I realized, well, I can make 3 times as much money with one sale as opposed to $300 every sale. I need a lot more of those sales per month. And this is a small town, so it's pretty hard to get yourself established and find that many people to part with their money to buy your stuff. But with dining room tables, I found it much easier because if I sold 2 dining room tables a month, my bills were paid for, I was starting to make money. So I did that for a while, and just by doing that and getting my name out there and finding these clientele, all of a sudden people were asking me to build custom things. So all of a sudden I was so busy building custom furniture that I had no time to build any more of these tables, and the $14,000 worth of stuff in my showroom has sold. So now I have an empty showroom and I've worked for like 6 months just building custom stuff. And I started charging accordingly and making more money than I ever did off those other tables. So one thing led to another, and I've been building custom furniture now for years. And just by doing that, my skill set has increased so much, and my tools have increased to, specialized tools and high quality tools. Because each job you need something different, or you need to learn something. And eventually, I just got really good at building things. And now I have such a reputation that I don't really need to go looking for work because the work comes to me because people want me to build things. And it's all because I have that natural interest in building things that I put all that I have into it, and I was able to become really good really fast. And over the years, just things naturally progresses to a point where I now have my dream business. I've accomplished what I wanted to achieve. And now it's time to go that next step. And something that battled with myself with for a while was, do I want to go rent or lease a commercial space and start hiring people, um, and grow this business? I thought long and hard about doing that, but it's just not something that I see myself wanting to do because all of a sudden, you would hire a bunch of people, you have all this work, it becomes super stressful, you don't get to build what you want to build, and you don't even get your hands dirty because you're not the one building it anymore. You're in charge of the business side of it all. And to me, that's not very interesting. So I'm going to start a YouTube channel, and I started that about 4 months ago, and I absolutely love it. And I have enough custom work on the go now, that the content is basically my business just feeds content to me all the time because people want these interesting things. So that's my story of how I got to where I'm at today as a woodworking business. I'm sure it's probably a lot different than others, but I hope that, it can be a somewhat of an inspiration to you to know that if you put your head down, you work really hard, you have great customer service, and just keep trying, you can start your own business, whether it's woodworking or something else, doing something that you love. Because I feel in life, you're never going to be fulfilled if you go to work every day doing something you hate every single day. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I have enjoyed telling this story. It's actually making me a little emotional right now because I haven't told my story this in depth before. And I thank so much for my wife and my kids for supporting me through it all this. It's really been a fantastic time. So thank you very much for watching this video, and please tune in to all of our other videos. I'm supposed to tell you to like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff, but I really just wanted to tell you my story. I don't care who likes it, who doesn't. This was for me, and I hope you enjoyed it.